So we are now by the third story of the Timewyrm series in the Virgin New Adventures. But let's do a little recap on the Timewyrm series. Timewyrm Genesys by John Peel. Timewyrm Exodus, written by Terrence Dix. Real start of the Virgin New Adventures. And then Timewyrm Revelation, written by Paul Cornell. Oh yeah, I forgot about this. People who have experienced the Virgin New Adventures and read the Timewyrm books know this one to be the bore fest. Nothing going for it. A book with no identity. A book completely forgotten about and has no talk whatsoever. So Exodus and Revelation get all the love. So we have to wait a little bit until we get to the magnificent Revelation, which I'm so looking forward to. We're gonna have to take a look at this. Was this a real bore fest, which I was predicting? Nothing but filler to Revelation? Or is this one actually a hidden gem? Find out in episode 5 of the Ultimate Book Marathon, where I will be reviewing Timewyrm Apocalypse. Yeah, I made a joke in the video of showing Revelation after Exodus because this one is just completely forgotten about. No one talks about it. People say it doesn't really have any identity to it. It's nothing to look forward to when you get to it. Because when you read Exodus, you say, oh, I have to get past this now. I want to get to Revelation. When I was looking at Apocalypse, Timewyrm Apocalypse, I said, it doesn't really have anything going for it. I just wanted to get to Revelation. I just wanted to get through this book as quickly as possible. It wouldn't really be anything special. It wouldn't stand out from the crowd with the Timewyrm series and not the books overall with the Virgin New Adventures. It wouldn't really stand out. It'd just be one of these average Doctor Who reads. You know, you can't deny that, quite literally, why this is a forgotten book. Because Exodus and Revelation act like a flipping brick wall to it. But this one is just in between these two and just gets no identity because Exodus and Revelation are just too well known. But I will say this, Apocalypse, it had a hard challenge, it had a difficult challenge to continue the goodness which was in Exodus. You know, it establishes a lot in the Timewyrm series and Revelation is the one which concludes it all. You have this one in the middle, really. So, to be fair and to defend it to a certain extent, this had a hard challenge. And as well, this is the shortest Doctor Who Virgin New Adventure out of all of them. Yeah, Nigel Robertson has done 2 of the most shortest New Adventures, with Birthright, 200 odd pages, and this one is 200 pages bang on. It's a very short book, but that's still, that doesn't say it might be a quick read for you, because for a lot of people, it's a very dull, boring read. And it actually takes a lot longer than you think. You know, Exodus to Apocalypse just looked like it had so much more going for it, really. And Revelation, with all its ambiguity and mystery, I was really looking forward to that one as well. But this one, I didn't think it would follow Genesys. Nah, I didn't think so. It was going to be around a 4 or 5 out of 10 as a guess. It would be under average, not terrible, but just under average, or average panel, just terribly average as a guess and an estimation of how this book would turn out, because that is the most common opinion with this book, and the highest rating I've ever seen this book is an 8 out of 10. I have never seen a 9, never seen a 10, I don't think I ever will with this book, because the content just doesn't boost it up to that rating. It doesn't. And the most common ratings is 4, 5 and 6 out of 10, but some people say, yeah, it's good, nothing brilliant, nothing great, average. Some people say it's average, probably the most common opinion with it, and then 4 out of 10, it's just seriously dull and boring. A very common opinion, again, for Apocalypse. Again, I didn't think it would be bad at all. I wasn't predicting that it would be a bad story, which a few say. I was being on a more optimistic side. I was saying it can't rival Genesys, and I don't think it will be near Genesys. So I was being a little bit optimistic. I was betting Genesys would turn out the worst for the trilogy, would turn out worse for the arc, because it is a real bloody stinker and I hate the damn book. Just gotta think of it like this. Once this book is finished, a short book, And then when I've read the Body Snatchers to do my marathon of how it works, then we've got Revelation to deal with. So yeah, when this is done, just think of Revelation. That's it. So again, it's a little bit like an obstacle like Genesys. It's going like up and down a little bit. But Genesys and Apocalypse, yeah, they just won't stand out. Exodus and Revelation, they were the big ones within the series. And who knows which one would stand out better, Exodus or Revelation. Personally, my money's on Exodus. We'll see though. Right, to talk about Nigel Robinson, I have experienced a few of his stories. He's never been a writer that stand out to me. Like Jonathan Morris, who I adore as a writer, John Dorney, Cameron Scott and Mark Wright. You know, writers like that, I follow their work. They're just magnificent, and when there's a story always coming out by them, I'm going to say, yeah, that's going to be a classic. Though I have looked into more of Nigel Robinson's work, you know, sometimes he does have some very clever, intriguing ideas and concepts to his stories, because recently, one of my recent Big Finish audio listens, it was Hunters of Earth, and I said, you know, this had good concepts to it, good ideas. He is a writer who has very good ideas, but sometimes his stories just lack. There's just something missing. Sometimes they just don't stand out with the other Doctor Who stories by other Doctor Who writers like Jonathan Morris, as I said, or Cameron Scott and Mark Wright. They just don't stand out. So even though he's not one of my favourite Doctor Who writers, I still think he's a good writer though. Because sometimes he can really show that he's got some good ideas in his head. Sometimes the execution could be a little bit more, but still. Good writer, but not one of my favourites. So without no further ado, let's begin my review of Timewyrm Apocalypse, the third and the penultimate of the Timewyrm series. Yeah, when I was reading Apocalypse, I knew that it wasn't as bad as Genesys. I mean, come on. It is not as bad as fucking Timewyrm Genesys. Because the negatives are just so blatantly obvious. And it's an absolute embarrassment in this Timewyrm Genesys. You know, I've talked about it. Just watch my review if you haven't, with me ranting. It's a load of absolute shit. And let's close it at that. It's absolutely definite that Genesys is the weakest from the Timewyrm series for me. Sometimes there's Apocalypse, again it's a little bit of a rival between the two, of which one is the massive stinker, but personally it's just Genesys just stands out more as a stinker. But yeah, my guesses of the book were absolutely spot on. Yeah, the book is filler. It's filler. It's like the Edge of Destruction for the Daleks and Marco Polo. This feels like the Edge of Destruction for the Timewyrm series, yet without the development, or anything which is major, I would say, to the Timewyrm series. Again, it's 200 pages long, and it did take me quite a bit of time to get through this one. I read Exodus quicker than this one, and this is a longer book by 30 pages or so. Yeah, 30 pages, so it's a bit longer. This took about 3 or 4 days, this one. And for a 200 book, it's the shortest one, so it took a little bit longer. Again, while I was saying, it won't be great, it won't be bad, it'll just be in the middle. That's where Timewyrm Apocalypse lies. It sometimes is good, I will give it that, and in a way I would defend it a little bit, but I wouldn't defend it to the fullest. What it wants to is a good book, and I think it's got some good ideas in there, but the problem is it just lacks in a lot of areas. Sometimes execution can be a little bit better. Yeah, my main issues with Apocalypse, it's filler. It lacks in a lot of areas, that's definitely a big one. And sometimes execution. Yeah, when experiencing the first half of the novel, and pretty much throughout, it doesn't go in another gear. It doesn't go down or up in drive, it's just that. Straight. But actually, during the end, it does like become a little bit of an issue, but I'll get to that in a minute. The drive is very standard. There's never a changing gear. Sorry about that, my camera died, but anyway, I was by the momentum of the story. It doesn't go into another gear. The momentum, it's not really there, so I can definitely agree with people that, that say it's a boring, slow book. It doesn't have an extra gear to it. The drive is very standard, it's just a straight line really, and then was a bit of an issue during like the 3/4 mark. 100 pages to 200 pages by that area, so I definitely agree with that. I think for the first half the pace was bearable, it was alright. And the things like the plots, the characters, the drive, villain, setting, enjoyment factor, all the ratings I do to give the book a huge analysis. You know, Exodus is better in every single way to Apocalypse. Everything was at a higher level in Exodus, it's just overall much better in every single possible way. What I don't like about the Timewyrm series, it's inconsistencies, it's not consistent. What I like about stories, and especially series, when it gets better as it goes along, or consistently good, that's brilliant as well. But the Timewyrm series is down, up, down and up. That's predicting of how it's going to go. Genesys, terrible start. Exodus, great, back to the top again. And we're going back down again with Apocalypse, not as much as Genesys, but we're still going down because the level of the level of Exodus to Apocalypse is very noticeable. Then back up with Revelation, which is for the conclusion, the last story of an arc or story, that's good. Yeah, I hope it doesn't do it with the Cat's Cradle trilogy. I hope it's consistently good. I don't think it will get better as it goes along, because I personally think Warhead would be the best. So hopefully it'll be consistently good, even though I'm a little bit worried. With Witchmark, but that's what I hope with the Cat's Cradle trilogy. Without, I don't want any inconsistencies. But one thing which grabbed me first when reading this book was actually developing the setting. It's a very psychedelic, very alien planet with unpredictable weather, orange burning sky, green seas, very creepy mutated creatures, which I'll talk about later within the book, and so on. That's the first thing that felt captivating about the book, was the development of the setting. It felt very alien and very psychedelic, and by the cover you can tell it's very psychedelic. Ace looks like she's on bloody drugs. Yeah, that's the first thing that captured me, and that's the first thing you have to nail in a book. It drives one, introducing the supporting characters, that needs to be done, but the thing that hit me first was the setting is well explained, and also it explains the danger of the book near the early stages quite well as well, which I quite appreciate. Anyway, to the plot of the book. After the events, of course, of Timewyrm Exodus, they are still on the hunt of the Timewyrm. So yeah, the TARDIS takes the Doctor and Ace to the edge of the universe at the end of time, on a planet called Kirith. Yeah, the Doctor has a bit of trouble to find any indication or evidence that the Timewyrm is still here or not. He has to really find out if the Timewyrm is still in this location, in this present time, and he is left determined to find out. And yet there is a section at the beginning which is... I'm trying to find it. Yeah, this bit by here, where it's like this Logopolis section. Again, I'm not too sure why that was there. It's a bit of a pointless thing, really. It just comes up without any purpose, direction. It just feels rather aimless to me. Just an excuse of throwing in continuity. Don't make it so obvious. Corey Kane does it in this clever way, and it's his writing style it is. Again, I don't really know why this was in here. If I missed something in the book, I don't know, but I don't know why it's in there, because I found it very weak. And as well, in this book, it does feature the Second Doctor and these Second Doctor scenes, and I also marked it in the book of where they, end. I think that's where they end. So yeah, very late within the book, where these Second Doctor scenes pop up. Scenes with Ben and Polly, Jamie and Victoria. Again, nice to have the Second Doctor around, because the Second Doctor is my favourite Doctor. However, it's very disjointed, it is. It feels very disjointed. And yeah, as I've said multiple times, this book is only 200 pages long, and quite a chunk of it is this Second Doctor stuff. And if we were to cut all the Second Doctor stuff out, this book would be about 20 to 25 pages shorter. The Seventh Doctor seems to have flashback into these events with the Second Doctor. It tries to do this mysterious thing of why the Seventh Doctor is having these Second Doctor flashbacks. It's made out really mysteriously and whatnot, and you can tell I'm being rather sarcastic, because it's trying to be creative and clever, but it's not. It's pretty easy to get what the book is trying to do, and I found it's predictable really. The book's trying to be clever, it's trying to be mysterious, but it's just not working. It's trying to do a little bit of a revelation where that's probably going to be, you know, crazy, a bit of a mindfuck of a story, and, you know, very creative and complex writing. It tries to do that a little bit, it tries to be a little bit creative and mysterious, but it doesn't work. Again, it just feels disjointed and not needed. Again, a little bit aimless. Yeah, to be honest, even though it's the second Doctor, it's a little bit distracting to the story. But when I was reading this, oh, it's the second Doctor thing again. Because I thought I was reading this 7th Doctor section, but then it, you know, quite abruptly just changes to the second Doctor scene. So I go, oh, this is the second Doctor part now. Well, it just changed that, like, quickly, abruptly. You know, I didn't expect it, but I didn't really want it at the same time. But yeah, don't get carried away with that second Doctor stuff. I would not count this as a multi-Doctor story. Neither would I count The Colony of Lies as one as well. It's only in the prologue and the epilogue. It's just a way, it's just a method of trying to be creative or clever with your writing of how this Doctor, you know, makes sense in the events of this book. It tries to be clever. Done before, as I said, it's done in The Colony of Lies, just in a different way. Sadly, that second Doctor stuff, I think most of it comes off as padding. It wasn't needed, very aimless, I found it. Again, if it was better executed, I don't think I would say that, but oh well, that's a bit of a shame. Now to the supporting characters. In Genesys, they had no identities, and when they did have characterization, it was terrible, like Gilgamesh. It's alright in this book. It's not on the level of Genesys where there's either really bad characterization or none at all. Again, Genesys has the worst characterization of any Doctor Who story of all time because, as I said, it's either no identities at all or crap characterization. I mean, insulting. Characterization, supporting characters, is bog standard again. And that's the way you can justify this book, bog standard. This is quite funny, because when I was putting my script together and looking for the characters, I said, what do you do again in this story? I completely forgot. Some of the characters, I just completely forgot what they did in the story. Again, it must not have been good, because I can't remember it. I remember a few of them which, you know, stood out to me, which really did stand out to me a little bit. They were okay characters, but some of them, I was left puzzled of what they did in the story, or what they offered to the story. They did do something, but for the life of me, I cannot remember. And I didn't put it in the script because I couldn't remember. It wasn't anything exciting when I read it. But yeah, a lot of areas in this book is very forgettable. Again, that's why I did the joke at the beginning of the review. People forget about this book and its elements and etc, etc. But there were some characters like Aaron, Raphael, Kraz, Lilith, or the Great Matriarch, who is the villain. Again, I'll get into the villain later. But yeah, some characters did, you know, stand out okay, so that's something, that is. Because in Genesys it didn't. But yeah, that was okay. You know, I was a bit relieved that at least some characters stood out. 14 characters, there was nothing captivating about really any of them. They were either very forgettable or were okay. I mean, the Great Matriarch didn't really stand out as a true villain when compared to Lieutenant Hemmons in Timewyrm Exodus, or even Ishtar, Timewyrm essentially, in Genesys, just even lower. The characters like Fetch and Hoodla, who were on the side of the Pantry, or the Grand Matriarch's government, yeah, those characters and their interactions with each other, it just never stood out in my head. The ones who did was Miral, Raphael, Aaron, and Kraz. They were the only ones because they did the most stuff within the plot and the events. Yeah, Timewyrm Apocalypse is one of these stories where it works a lot like where the setting and the world lies. It does. It's very deceitful. So it's something like Smile, or the Celestial Toymaker, or the Yes Men for different examples. You know, this world is being represented as a very peaceful loving planet full of science and invention and knowledge, great buildings and a perfect peaceful race, where this planetary government have basically given a wonderful life for the civilization of the Kirith, or well, the Crevilians as they're called, on the planet Kirith. But yeah, eventually the atmosphere is built up to be very deceitful, where evil is committed in the shadows and not in plain sight. So yeah, very similar ideas to that, the atmosphere, or the, you know, the very happy atmosphere of the Celestial Toymaker sometimes, or Smile, or the Keys to Marinus episode 2, the Yes Men, as I've said. Now we said some of the bland stuff about the book. There is some good moments though, and it's darker aspects, which I do like it for. I do like the idea, even though it's being used quite a lot, where it comes to these peaceful locations, but behind the scenes very sinister plots are going on. You do know that this elite society, or this government called the Planetary, govern over the Crevilians on the planet Kirith. They basically give the Crevilians everything, really. You know, with knowledge, science, invention, travelling on the planet, cities, they can build cities. You know, they've done a lot for them, but really, this government are just very two-faced. As you know, they do not allow travel outside of the planet because of the reason to the plot. Yeah, two-faced either shows the working of a coward or the working of a very sinister mind in this case. It's a very sinister, deceitful plan of this government. You know, they talk differently and act differently from behind their backs, the Crevilians. So that's a part of the plot which I really like and what they're planning to do, and to show the darker aspects, and to see they're very two-faced, this government. I like that idea. Yes, the reason why they do not want the Crevilians to travel outside of the planet, because they are doing secret experiments on them. They're doing vile, disgusting genetic mutations on the civilizations. They're basically rats in a trap. And the reasons why they're doing all these vile experiments is later revealed later in the book. And the world is actually controlled by monsters, which hide themselves from the public. So I personally like that idea and the darker aspects of it. I do love it when Doctor Who deals with bleak stories and situations, darker aspects. Personally, some of my bread and butter when it comes to Doctor Who, that's why I'm really looking forward to Warhead. Yeah, I do love Doctor Who stories when they go down this path. But when you go for a bleak story, you've got to give it some fuel. Because if you do not nail bleak to the fullest when it comes to me, and that's what you're going for, your darker aspects, I want it nailed. You know, about pages 50, I would say, it sort of shows the danger that, you know, the Doctor's life is now in danger, that this government see him as a threat to their plans, and they quickly, you know, want to deal with him, and try to kill him on many attempts, and drop a boulder on him. At one point when he was trying to find this city in ruins, sort of exposes the government a little bit that the Crevilians, the planet Kirith, isn't their home planet. They're just a race which have been brought here, lied where they actually are the civilization of this planet, and are just used for experiments. Yeah, the Planetary government know that the Doctor is a threat, and they sort of know that he's a Time Lord, so that begs the question of who really is the enemy. And by the halfway mark, you can see, you know, that this government created these disgusting, vile monsters, genetic mutations and whatnot. And even there's some parts of cloning as well, which I quite liked about the book. It's a bit disgusting, this is, really, because, you know, it's like flesh and organs like falling out. It's a little bit bloody and gory, this book, sometimes, when you know, really do read it, because some people find it very hard to invest, but when you just look into it, you said, yeah, that's a bit disgusting, that is. Because cloning sometimes can be very disgusting, it can. You know, there could be a case where, you know, there's multiple organs, multiple limbs, and it's very vile. Yeah, the first half is nothing great, but, you know, it's enjoyable in areas, which I was surprised about, so that's good, that is, I'm happy. It's nothing great, it's nothing bad, it's just somewhere in the middle. Sometimes it's very average, but at times it has its moments. Again, nothing on the level of Genesys by bad, but nothing on the level of Exodus being fantastic. And we do learn by Aaron's character about a deadly disease and a sickness is spread across the planet, which I think has something to do with Arton energy. I might be wrong. To make this a little bit more effective, and this would have been fantastic, and it would add so much more bleak factors of the story. Again, when you're doing bleak, I want to see some fuel to the fire. I wish we can see Aaron get physically sickened by this government. You know, being sad, full of despair, emotions, you know, angry, frustrated. But this government are just so flipping two-faced. Show some emotion, come on, get some bleakness to it. The Panjastri government are doing all this vile, disgusting stuff. And you should be angry, not just, you know, let's just deal with them. And that's it, come on, get some development there, just get some expansion. God, I would have loved that, I would, and I probably would have even give the book a bit of a higher score if it did that. If it developed more on the bleakness. Again, sometimes I ask for too much bleakness in the story, but again, when it goes into that area, I like it to be nailed, personally. It's just, it would give it better drive and motivation to the story if I actually had sympathy to the characters, because, again, I agree that this Panjastri government are vile, but I want the characters to feel that too, so then I can feel sympathy for the characters. When you're going for dark aspects in a story, you've got to give the essential gravitas elements to it. The plot is bleak in places and very dark and very disgusting. That needed more. Needed more. Again, I've said this multiple times, we're going to leave it there. Yeah, there's another moment in the story which I quite like, which really made a decision-making situation of one of these mutated monsters in a container, and they didn't know what to do with it. It was Ace, Raphael, Myrrel and Kraz, and they were debating what the hell to do with it, because it was vile, it looked like it was in pain. I believe Raphael wanted to, well, not kill it, to let it live and maybe negotiate with it, but you know, I think Kraz or Myrrel said opposite of it. It can't be reasoned with. It can't. Ace doesn't know what to think about this one. Again, it would have been good if she had her own mind of what to do, give a little bit of independency, because she asks and thinks in her head what the Doctor would do. So again, she had a lot of independency in Exodus, so I wish that was further in Apocalypse, personally. But yeah, Raphael doesn't want to kill it. There's some characters where it has to die to pull it out of its misery, and there's another character saying it has to die because it's used by an evil power, and again, it can't be reasoned with. If you let it out of the container, it might attack Ace and the other characters, because it can't reason, it has no emotion. The creature, you know, it's like multiple organs falling out. You know, the creature is hideous, you know, multiple organs, bits of flesh just falling off. Yeah, animosity does kick in with all the characters of what to do, and eventually something happens where the creature actually escapes from its capsule. Well, no, sorry, not capsule, a container, because it's, you know, trying to force out. You know, when it's out, you know, there's just like flesh all over the place. It's just falling off the creature, or the abomination, essentially. And then it begs the question, was the creature actually attacking out of fear? Was it attacking them for food? You know, it's left quite ambiguous, really. Yeah, Ace from time to time has good connections to the events of the stories, like that part, which I'm happy about, really. But however, the Doctor, not really. He's just really there, just quickly solving the story and the events, trying to unravel everything. That's basically here. And there is one moment where he's trying to escape from another one of these mutated monsters in a forest. I'm happy that Ace had some moments. Again, it could have been better to like show some independency, but the Doctor, a bit lacking, really. Again, one of its major faults, it lacks in a lot of areas. I would say the South Doctor's characterization is very standard, and his involvements, again, it's not, it's nothing memorable. Ace, on the other hand, yeah, I would say she's done better, actually. Yeah, supporting characters eventually interact as well, a bit better, and I, you know, really did see some standout ones for me, which I said, yeah, these are okay, actually. As I said, with Raphael, Myrrel, Kraz and Aaron, but the rest of them, no. And the villain, as I said, pretty underwhelming, really, and nothing special with the Grand Matriarch, or Lirith, for her real name. But yeah, the Grand Matriarch isn't fully revealed just yet, and there's some parts of the story very late in the story, and I'll explain a little bit about this machine. But we get into the parts of something called the God Machine. But yeah, Apocalypse, after the 100 pages, near the 3/4 mark, I sort of found the book starting to drag, starting to get a bit boring. I know what I was saying to myself, I need to get to Revelation. Nothing really exciting was going on, it lacked drive, it went from average drive to decreasing drive. It then became a difficult book to invest in and to find any motivation. I was basically reading it to finish it so I can move on to Revelation and the Body Snatchers. All I was saying is this: just finish it quickly, and when it's finished, a Borefest is done, I can then move on to the Body Snatchers, and then for the real exciting one, move on to Timewyrm Revelation. I think the plot itself is actually very good, really, but it's just all its other aspects. It just lacks. Being A, nothing big really happens. B, what does it offer to the Timewyrm series? C, it's very difficult to feel any motivation to read this book at times. And D, it's filler. Nothing sparks at the book. It makes you go, hey, look at me, I'm Timewyrm Apocalypse. It's like this book doesn't have any noticeable identity. It has no form. It doesn't have a good form like Exodus. It doesn't have a bad form like Genesys. It's just this boring book for most people. I wouldn't fully state that it's a boring book because at times I was enjoying it, but eventually, you know, I was saying to myself, yeah, I want to get to Revelation now. Again, I will defend it to a certain extent that it had a difficult challenge with Exodus and Revelation by each other, but it just lacks in so many places, and it's known as the Timewyrm book, which no one talks about. Now, the God Machine, this is a very late element in the book. Now, the God Machine was something that was going to prevent the end of the universe, and this government, this planetary government, were going to make this machine to stop the end of the universe. Because as the book says at the bio, the TARDIS has tracked the Timewyrm to the edge of the universe and the end of time on the planet Kirith. They're making this machine to stop that event from happening. But again, a sinister force, which you should know, wants to use the God Machine to rule the universe and use it in a different way. Now, even though we come right to the end of the book here, what have I not talked about Timewyrm Apocalypse? I'll give you 5 seconds to guess. The Timewyrm. Again, this is probably another reason why people call this filler, but the Timewyrm is barely even in it. And her events, hardly anything where we actually see the Timewyrm herself. Hardly ever see it in this book. I will say, I won't say who she's like manipulated and controlled or possessed. Yeah, the Timewyrm has possessed a character. So that's how it goes, and wants to use the God Machine to rule the universe. That's why she went to the edge and the end of the universe to use this God Machine. She didn't really feel to me when I was reading for the 170 page mark and before that, it didn't feel like the Timewyrm had any influence over the story, just to have control over the God Machine and not really the events which really taken place for me. But yeah, the Timewyrm herself, she's barely even in it. And yeah, possessed a character. So very similar to Exodus in the second half, but that was much better here because her possessing that character actually had a lot to do with the story. So it's good. Here, no, it just doesn't work. So therefore I criticise that part. And that the Timewyrm just showed up so flippin' late. But anyway, what it does do well is excites things for Timewyrm Revelation. This is in a perfect position. Let's hope it delivers. So, to the rating analysis for Timewyrm Apocalypse. We'll be rating in 12 different categories, and the categories are these: story, characters, enjoyment factor, writing/dialogue, drive, pacing, padding, villain/threat, twists/unpredictability, main elements, originality/creativity, and reread. A full score in each in-depth analysis rating will give it 120 out of 120. That's how the in-depth ratings work. And then I'll do a final rating out of 10. So to the story. I think the story was very good. I think the plot was good, and very dark aspects to it, with this very two-faced planetary government doing these vile experiments, but in the face of the Crevillians, they're very peaceful. However, behind the scenes, they're very two-faced and acting very sinister and using very dark, disgusting experimentations on the civilization. 6 out of 10 to the story. Characters. Characters were just bog standard, really. Some of them stood out okay for me, as I said, with Aaron, Raphael, Kraz and Mirif. They were good. The Doctor lacked really any involvement or big moments in the story, but Ace was pretty good. Again, it could be improved. 5 out of 10. Enjoyment factor. There's moments, but again, it sort of slacked during the 3/4 mark. 4 out of 10. Writing / dialogue. Dialogue was good, and some animosity moments. Again, I did like the scene where they were arguing on what to do with the creature in the container, and the cloning scene I definitely did like. To see very twisted dialogue from like Ace and whatnot, which I quite liked. Probably give a 6 out of 10 for that. Drive, it was very standard, like a 5 out of 10. Then came to the 3/4 mark, it dragged somewhat. 4 out of 10. Pacing, again, moments it did show very well, but again, very consistent pacing, I would say. 6 out of 10. Padding, the second Doctor scenes wasn't needed, even though I like the second Doctor, it was not needed. And again, I do not know why that Logopolis section was in this book. 4 out of 10. Villain / threat. I won't really say to the Timewyrm because it's just so late in the book. The Grand Matriarch didn't feel like a superb villain, but the real villain here was just the government themselves, the Pangestry, and their vile experiments. I think that feels like the biggest threat in the book. Yeah, 6 out of 10 for that, because I just love the darker aspects of the Pangestry government. Twist / unpredictability. I did like the cloning scene, like Ace and like Aaron and Raphael and Kraz. I think that was very good. And quite the dark direction of it all I found quite unpredictable, which I quite like. Nothing really on the lines of twists, and I already knew who the Timewyrm was before reading this anyway, so it can't count, unfortunately. But I would say it's pretty predictable anyway. So 5 out of 10. Main elements. There's darker aspects, which surprised me and I enjoyed a lot. Second Doctor scenes, I would say, is definitely a main element, because it's definitely forcing down your throat, I would say. But I really do like the darker elements this takes. 7 out of 10. Originality / creativity. Again, the dialogue from the cloning scene I really did like, and just something a little bit different, just to see a dialogue change with some characters we know, like Ace, which I quite liked. Again, nothing nothing original. So I would say it's pretty creative though, sometimes, because it does have some creative ideas. Again, the second Doctor, again, I knew what he was going for, but it just didn't work, so I'm not going to give points to that. I'll probably go right down the middle with a 5 out of 10. And reread, 5 out of 10 again. Giving an overall total of 63 out of 120. And for my final rating, 5 out of 10 for Timewyrm Apocalypse. To really just justify what this book is like, it's bog standard. It's terribly average. Though what I was very surprised about was its darker aspects, which I really did enjoy. Again, it could have been more bleaker, which I would push the rating to a 6 out of 10 if it was. So I definitely like that cloning scene. Short, but I liked it. The monsters, again, like these terrible, disgusting monsters I quite like. But yeah, this scene predicted in this cover, that monster only shows up for like a scene, it does, so that's a bit unfortunate, bit of a lie on the cover there. It sort of like demonstrates it to be a really strong scene in the book, which it sort of is, because something happens to one of the characters. The story itself I enjoyed to an extent. Definitely loved the darker aspects, but how it falls on its face is that it lacks in a lot of places. If it's filler, and it just cannot live up to Exodus, and it won't with Revelation. It's a very average Doctor Who book. It's nothing brilliant. I think it has, as I said, I think it has its moments at times, but again, I was sort of thinking a 6, but when reading to the 3/4 mark, I said, yeah, this is going to be a 5 now. So it's getting a 5 out of 10. Would love to rate it higher to give the Virgin New Adventures a stronger lead, but no, it's getting a 5 out of 10 for me and 63 out of 120. That's how my in-depth analysis has worked with this book, and that's what it gets. I just want to get to Revelation, get to Warhead, reread Nightshade and re-rate it as well. Again, I know that's going to get a very high rating for sure. We've had the terrible Genesys, we've had the bog standard, terribly average, Timewyrm Apocalypse, again at its moments. But when you get to this one, don't expect anything huge from it, because it's not. It lacks in a lot of places, unfortunately, and it's filler with the Timewyrm series. So yeah, that was my review on Timewyrm Apocalypse by Nigel Robertson. Gets a 5 out of 10. So yes, I will see you in the next Doctor Who Ultimate Book Marathon, which is episode 6, and I'll be reviewing the Body Snatchers. But for the more exciting installment for the Ultimate Book Marathon being episode 7, I'll be finally taking a look at Timewyrm Revelation, being the final installment of the Timewyrm series. Will Mark Morris deliver a good one with the Body Snatchers? And will Timewyrm Revelation be this ultimate conclusion and finale to the Timewyrm series? Find out soon, so thanks for watching, and of course, have a good one.